I do.
Isn't it true that this came out of a ruling of the Supreme Court, I believe it's 16 or 17, known as, we call it Sustainable Coast?
Senator, I think you're right,
Right.
On that.
I am.
Well, then you are then.
Yeah, I'm helping you out.
If you've confirmed that, thank you, Senator. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And in fact, since that point in time, citizens of this state have not been able to get redress in terms of unconstitutional laws or stopping unconstitutional laws that come out of this body since that point in time. Isn't that true?
Senator, you know of which you speak, and you state it well.
And then with respect to the timing element, when you're talking about one of these things, as soon as this unconstitutional law is signed by a governor and goes into effect, in fact, lawyers will be immediately at the courthouse filing for emergency injunctive relief, correct?
That's certainly possible, yes.
And then at that point in time, that law will be enjoined, correct?
Certainly could be. Yes, that would be the intent and a hope of the action.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the question.
You have no more questions.
Thank you. I encourage your support for this good legislation. I yield the well.
The question now is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Are we calling up 164 or 186? Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Bill 164 off the supplemental rules calendar?
House Resolution 164 by Representative Powell of the 171st and others, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by general law for the dedication of revenues derived from fees or taxes to the public purpose for which such fees or taxes were imposed, provide for procedures, conditions, and limitations, provide for the redesignation of a current subparagraph of the Constitution, provide for the submission of this amendment for ratification or rejection. For other purposes, Mr. President, Senate Appropriations Committee offers the following substitute to House Resolution 164. A resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by general law for the dedication of revenues derived from certain fees or taxes to the public purpose for which such fees or taxes were imposed and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd to speak to House Resolution 164.
Thank you, Mr. President. When I first ran for office, one of the complaints that I heard was, you guys will dedicate fees to deal with old tires or to clean up waste, but then that money really, all of it really isn't allocated to the program. Well, House Resolution 164 is designed to address that. It started out on a much broader basis, which has now been tailored down to those items that we hear the most complaints of, and that deals with fees regarding the toxic waste or hazards to clean up those things or disposal of tires. And this is a constitutional amendment that will be voted on by the voters, and it will require that when we dedicate fees for these purposes identified in the bill, that those fees will in fact be used for those purposes. So, Mr. President, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
You have a question.
Yes, sir.
Recognize our friend from the 48th District.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes.
Will the chairman yield?
Yes.
I think I do note here that these revenues are capped at 1%.
Yes, but that there is a cap in there, and that is on line 4. Lines 52 through 55.
Does the chairman further yield?
Yes.
So that would have gone to my
Well,
question
it's
of...
1% of the total state
Yes.
revenues.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So it is capped.
Right.
And that goes to my question I was going to ask about if there were any excess revenue. So basically, it's capped.
It's capped, but excess revenues have to remain with the program. They will not go, if you'll look at paragraph 5, that keeps them from going back into the general fund for further appropriation. And then if you look at paragraph number 6, the excess revenues will go to the EPD for their operations.
Does the chairman further yield?
Yes.
So if it's going to the operations of the EPD, then it's not going to the hazardous waste cleanup?
That's only excess revenues.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. I'll yield the well, Mr. President.
You have no more questions. All right, the question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. All right, this question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? The chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution by substitute? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this resolution now be adopted? The question's on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor of the resolution will vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. This is a constitutional amendment which takes 2/3 of the entire body. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. The resolution having received the requisite 2/3 constitutional majority is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption to House Bill 186?
House Bill 186 by Representative Stevens of the 164th and others. The bill will be titled Enactment, Article 4 of Chapter 7, Title 31 of the OCGA, relating to county and municipal hospital authorities, so as to revise provisions relating to the sale or lease of a hospital by a hospital authority, to provide for conflicting interest transactions, provide for the investment of funds by certain hospital authorities, and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Rules Committee offers the following subject to House Bill 186, a bill titled Enactment Title 31 of the OCGA relating to health, so as to revise provisions relating to certificate of need requirements, to revise and provide for new definitions relative to health planning and development, to prohibit certain actions relating to medical use rights, to provide provisions regarding when certificate of need is required, to repeal a provision relating to the establishment of set times in which certain application for capital projects may be accepted, to authorize destination cancer hospitals to be converted to general cancer hospitals, to revise and provide for additional exemptions to certificate of need requirements, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd to speak to House Bill 186.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the controversies we've had today, I'm really happy that we can end the day on something non-controversial. and that's CON. So, but in fact, a compromise has been worked out, and you'll see letter of support, I know, from the Georgia Hospital Association to this bill. Now, the original bill deals with hospital authorities from the representative and them being able to use funds on indigent other than necessary to hospital expenses. We passed that out, the exact same bill already. It's still there. And not going through the entire bill, let me tell you a few things that are not in there that have been controversial. The legacy hospital, the freestanding EDs, the ambulatory surgery centers. Mental health is not in there, though I certainly think we need to do something on that one. What is in there is Cancer Treatment Centers of America and the Georgia Hospital Association came up with a compromise that they've both agreed to allow them to have more Georgia patients and to continue to do what they're doing. One of the issues was that they will still be a cancer hospital. They can't just be a general hospital and bring in somebody for a gallbladder taken out, that kind of thing. However, if comorbidities come up in the treating of cancer, they will be able to treat those. They're doing it right now. There'll be no change in that. They will go through the CON process like any other hospital, but there shouldn't be any problems in them getting the CON. The capital that had been in the senator from the 11th bill wanting to raise it to $10 million is there, and the equipment to $3 million. The medical use rights outlawing the procedure of buying up land and putting a covenant on it that says it can't be used for for medical uses, i.e. to eliminate competition, is in there. There's transparency in there. The CON now has a 35-mile radius on who can object to it. And the last item, I'll let the senator from the 11th address that, though he and I and the chair last year of Healthcare and some others worked all year on this, and it was strategic health strategy coordination, where the governor actually vetoed that and said, I really think that should be left up to the next governor. The next governor has weighed in, and he has asked for a couple of minor changes to that on some appointments. Other than that, he's weighed in and is good with that to the best of my understanding on all our conversations. I will tell you in that section, the data analytics bill that we passed the other day is important to what we're doing here, that we use that type of data to make decisions to improve health care. So I've gone sort of quickly through what is and is not in the bill. This is a compromise. I believe all sides are in agreement on this, and it does still have the original hospital authority language in there from before. I would like Dr. Burke to address, I'm sorry, the senator from the 11th to address this at some point on his council, but questions on the rest of it, I'll certainly be glad to take, and if there's none, I'll yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st for a question.
Senator Yield.
I'll yield.
Senator, a destination cancer hospital, is that trying to get people to come from out of town to come get treatment? Like a,
that
like
has
a
had a
medical
ratio,
tourism, if you will?
that has had a ratio of so many from the state of Georgia, so many from outside of the state of Georgia. That ratio will not be there.
Okay.
However, it is a compromise that the Georgia Hospital Association that represents the other hospitals and CTCA have agreed to.
So it's going to now be called a general cancer hospital? But it would not change, it won't add an emergency room?
It will not have an emergency
Okay.
room, and it won't be a general hospital. And as I said, they will do what they're doing now. They can treat comorbidities that come about from people being there, but the primary reason they have to be there is for cancer. That's not going to change.
Can you also look at lines 100 through 106? This seems to be a property rights issue, if I'm reading this correctly. Can you just explain those lines about what this limits healthcare facilities to do as far as extending leases and so on?
Well, what the intent of this is there not be issues where somebody would buy up property and then put a covenant on there that says it cannot be used for medical use. That is, many see that as anti-competitive, and again, all sides agreed have that in there.
Would the senator further yield
I'll
for
yield.
one more question? On lines 290 through 297, it talks about not allowing anyone to appeal this application. Right now, for example, I had a hospital in my district that was built a few years ago, and then within 6 months they wanted to add 2 new floors, and they had to go through the CON process and ask for permission, and then some of their competitors were able to appeal. So would this just apply to this cancer
No.
facility, or would this apply to anybody that wanted to expand?
would-
There's no rights to appeal.
This would expand statewide, that there is a 35-mile radius that you have to be in there, or you have to have part of your coverage zone in that area. Or another exception would be if, say, 2 competing entities want to come in and build maybe the same thing, even though neither one of them were in there, they would be able to appeal each other's in that case. But it does limit it to where we're not appealing things in other parts of the state that there's no interest in.
So this isn't just for that facility, it's for all CON.
Correct.
Thank you.
You have an additional question. The chair recognizes the senator from the 45th.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, would you yield?
I'll certainly yield for the Chair of Science and Technology.
Thank you very much. Senator, I believe we're working off of LC 289372S from the Rules Committee. Is that correct? This is the changes that were made in the Rules Committee. I just want to make sure that we're working off the same substitute.
I'll defer to make sure. I want to say yes, but I want to make sure I'm in agreement from the Secretary. Could you repeat it again, or else I want to make sure his copy, but yes, 289372S is
Okay.
the official copy he has.
Okay. I had a couple of questions. One is about the 35-mile radius. Is that addressed in lines 80 through 86? Or is it different somewhere else?
I think you'll see it in a couple of areas, but
I just wanted a description of what is the mothership? What is the primary campus? What if you have someone like Piedmont Hospital that is located in down here in Buckhead, but then they have their ancillary hospital down in Fayetteville or wherever it is? Which one is calculated as 35 miles? Is it the one in Buckhead or is it the one in Fayetteville?
it would be your primary location, but if that's part of your service area, there could be an appeal. But this does still limit it from how it had been in the past.
So that really, would you further yield?
I'll yield.
You know, I don't understand. These hospitals are huge. If you look at Wellstar Hospital, the largest hospital system in the state, but then they have ancillary hospitals. They may have a hospital in Savannah, Georgia. Which one is considered the primary campus?
Well, the primary campus is for expansion, but if they are in that service area, they would have the right to appeal.
Okay, so
A
then
CON.
the 35 miles wouldn't be applicable, right?
Not if they're in that service area. That's only if you're not in that service area,
Okay.
can you go in.
Okay, and then my other question on lines 156 to 163 talks about providing fines. It's talking about uncompensated, indigent, and charity care. My question is, the destination hospital that we're speaking about had originally had payment types and fines, and to my knowledge, those fines have never been paid. Is that not accurate?
The fines have not changed in this. There's nothing that relieves any fines from being owed or that relieves indigent care under the same percentages they had before.
So my question is, would you further yield? My question is, before a new CON is issued, are those fines going to be not only levied, but actually paid?
Well, it would be repaid, and I don't know, I've heard the fines are owed, they're not owed. I personally haven't gotten those numbers from DCH, but whatever is owed would be paid under CON law.
Then further, I just want to understand it better. Those fines would be paid before a new CON certificate is issued.
That's the way this bill is written, you're correct.
Okay. And then the last thing, and the most important thing, I think, to this body, is if we agree to this, and then it goes back, then it goes to conference committee, and the conference committee, if it's disagreed, is there going to be any changes coming back to this body, or this is the final settlement? We've got the letter from the Georgia Hospital Association saying how wonderful this agreement is. The question is there going to be any changes in a conference committee?
There's no way I, as one member, can say that it would go to a conference committee and not be changed. I think we've got a good compromise here. I know the House has a different bill they're working on, and I don't know the status of that, which one of these prevails, or if neither one prevails. But I certainly can't say that on any bill, as much as I like to see my bills stay the same.
And the last question, wouldn't you agree that in the best interest of the Senate body, that it would be better to have this agreement reached and go to conference committee and agree to it and not come back? Because the potential is in this body, if this is changed, that we will vote down all CON new changes. Is that not true? Wouldn't it be in the best interest?
I think it's the best interest that we do get a bill out that the majority of the Senate can vote on and not have nothing happen, that's for sure.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th for a question. He waives. You have no more questions.
All right, I urge your favorable passage of this bill, and again, if the senator from the 11th wants to speak to the council that he has worked hard on for a couple of years, I think it would be the responsible thing to do. Thank you.
Before we move on, the Senate's going to suspend for a moment, and the chair is going to entertain a motion from the senator from the 4th.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate insist on its substitute to HB 31.
Senator from the 4th has moved that the Senate insist on its substitute to House Bill 31. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, we have insisted on our position, and we have continued to speed up the process to get to the conferees. All right, the chair recognizes the senator from the 11th to speak to House Bill 186.
Thank you, Mr. President. The chairman of the Finance Committee asked me to speak specifically to Section 2 of House Bill 186. And Section 2 is the bill that we passed out last year that developed the Office of the Health Strategy and Coordination Council and Director. The idea behind this is having a single level of, or a single person who is focused on healthcare policy for the state. At this time, we have multiple state agency heads who are all managing their agency, and it's very difficult for them to work through the areas of duplication of services, poor coordination, and innovation. And so the whole idea here, similar to the Criminal Justice Reform Council, is to have a central person and then a advisory committee that will advise the governor on how we can move forward on health care in the most judicious way to improve outcomes. As the chairman mentioned, there is a section that discusses data analytics, and we've been talking about that for 3 or 4 years now. And that advisory committee would also advise the governor on the best way to make sure, as we develop these data programs, that we're using them to our benefit. So again, appreciate your support of the overall bill 186, and I'll be glad to yield for questions, Mr. President.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 51, the nays are 4. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. For what purpose does the senator from the 19th rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. President.
State your inquiry.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate immediately transmit Senate Bill 186 to the House.
Senator from the 19th has moved that the Senate immediately transmit House Bill 186 to the House. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, the secretary will immediately transmit to the House. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand in recess until the Senate receives a message from the House on HB 31, and upon receipt of the House message, that a conference committee be appointed, and upon such appointment, that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 on Tuesday, March 26th.
Mr. Secretary, will you read the announcements?
Rules will meet upon adjournment at 4:50 of the Capitol. Insurance and labor was canceled. Finance will meet at 3 p.m. in Mez 1. Education and youth will meet at 4 p.m. in 307 of the CLOB. Public safety will meet at 4 p.m. in Mez 1. Health and Human Services will meet at 5 o'clock in 4:50 of the Capitol. And Judiciary will meet at 6 p.m. in 307 of the CLOB. That concludes the order.
Does any senators have any announcements to make? The Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand in recess until the Senate receives a message from the House on HB 31, and upon receipt of the House message, that a conference committee be appointed, and upon such appointments, that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Tuesday, March 26th, 2019. Those conferees will be the Senator from the 49th, Senator from the 30th, and the Senator from the 4th. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it, and the Senate stands adjourned.